Hi. Um, I am sitting here on Sunday, January 14th, knowing it may be a snowy weekend. Definitely MLK day off on Monday. So I'm going to make sure that at least those who missed week one for the advanced topic can have a chance to do the recording if they so choose. And if we happen to get precipitation and snow and you have a snow day on Tuesday. So just this is anticipatory, but it's nice to have it done anyway. So week one, we're going to talk about our topic this month is kids playing video games. And wow, I thought I'm going to do the proponents side because there was so much negativity about it. I figured this would be the harder side. So when I approach my advanced essays, I always try to look at which side would be harder for me to prove. Let's get that one out of the way. And then, because I know the other side I can prove easily. What I didn't know, and I will, full disclosure, share with you, was I was astonished at how helpful video games can be. Let me make the disclaimer here when they're played in moderation and appropriate age levels. So, video games are huge business. And when I say huge, I was stunned by the numbers. So, I put on my board in my classroom as I began this topic the numbers for 2023. And here they are. Just as a comparison, the movie industry in the United States sold $7 billion with profits in 2023. Since we did the ebooks versus print books, total combined for 2023 was $78 billion. Wow. So books were, that much greater than movie sales. So I was curious, what were the video game industry sales? So remember, 78 was the number for books. The estimated revenue for the video game industry just in America was $365 billion. That's a staggering amount. And I had no idea how big it had become. I knew it was big. In 82, that number was 10 billion. So we've had just a massive increase of video games. Now, it kind of makes sense with technology. And when I say video games, I don't just mean a PlayStation, a Nintendo. You can play games on your phone, your iPad, your PC. But for the most part, I think gamers, we're looking at, your game systems. And I was really surprised this week how many of my students had a game system. So what does that say? And these are my Indian Asian parents who value education over everything. They also value fun. They also value leisure activities. And the number one statement made by kids and teens, young adults about video games is they're fun. And that's how I feel about my books, my 600 books on my iPad. That's how I feel about, running or riding my bike or exercising. So whatever relieves your stress, gives you joy, um, you know, I'm all for it in moderation. Okay. The other thing here that's really fascinating is the social quality of video games. We're going to talk about that as well. So I'm going to start with, I'm going to share my screen here. Just a video, get you thinking about it. I apologize. I have 3 different screens open so I can prepare for this. So just prepared by behavioral, just so this is proponents.
There's not necessarily a magical age in which it's appropriate to begin introducing your kids to games. The studies that are currently available have evaluated and measured the amount or number of hours that kids are playing video games. Generally begins at around age 8. But really, it comes down to a parent's choice as to whether or not this is an effective or appropriate media for their child. When it comes to the use of video games, we see this benefit when it's used in moderation. Now, it's unclear whether or not that benefit holds true with that a younger age group. What we see with the older age groups is that the use of games under an hour a day can actually foster creativity, problem solving, and improve social functioning. Over that 3 hour threshold is where we start to see a great deal of impairment start to give a rise in their school functioning, family functioning, interpersonal functioning. I would not differentiate between educational games and allow more access to that versus more just simply entertainment related games. It's important to understand gaming as gaming, just like I would say screen time is screen time, whether it's on a telephone, an iPhone, or a.
Okay, so you get the gist. I'm not going to waste your time too much there. So we're going to go to what I have compiled for you. And I was really shocked, ladies and gentlemen, my advanced students, that I could find 15 pages worth of solid arguments. I was like, wow. So you'll see here the statistics, the gaming industry. Um, great lead idea. Why do kids love video games? Of course, they're fun. Um, Kids don't like the easy games either. They like the ones that are more challenging, multi-level, multi-dimensional. And let's face it, video games today are not what they were for me. I remember Pac-Man, Pong, just, two horizontal bars and a blip on a screen. You look at today's games, and I can see, the story elements in games, why kids are fascinated with them. So I like the first article. Video games are frowned upon by parents as time wasters and worse. Some education experts think these games corrupt the brain. Well, let's just throw the other side in because we always have to look at the other side and know what their arguments are. And I think that that's probably, and I'm going to stop share here for just a second. The absolute number one argument from the other side is the violence in the games and the profanity and the inappropriate level. So fascinatingly, I asked my kids and I said, just be honest with me. These are my younger ones. Do you want to play the games that are appropriate for your age? Or do you want to play the games that everyone's talking about? And of course, you know the answer. They want to play the games that are kind of out of their reach, that are, you know, more adult like, that are challenging. These are the T and M games. Um, so I think that's a fair argument against them exposing a child to something they're not ready for. Not disclaimer here. I'm pretty sure you're going to see that on the internet somewhere, especially with the things that you see about Hamas and Israel and Ukraine and Russia, because I don't think you can stay away from that. Let me share the screen here again. Okay, so we're going to go through here. Great example here. Many scientists and psychologists believe that video games can actually have benefits. So there has to be a reason they're making so much money, and there has to be a reason that your parents are okay with it, right? I think about the sports games too. Is there any um, and I want to say transferable skills from video games? And the answer is yes. So something that came out of this that staggered me was, the fine motor skills, which I knew this because I have a son who's dysgraphic, who has underdeveloped fine motor skills. And that's something I'm not good at, the video game controllers that you can get good at. Um, the spatial awareness, the multitasking that you have to do in a video game. And what they say is, shockingly, video games develop higher level critical thinking. Don't believe me. I'm about to prove it with some ethos here. The other thing that's fascinating that I found out, after a week of teaching this was the transferable skills. So, for example, let's say you're playing Madden football and you're playing the video game, the actual video game, and you look at, a technique that you saw in the video game and you think, wait, I could play that on the field, right? I could take that idea and incorporate it into my own football strategy. And a student actually told me that that worked. So let me give you the relevance in what they found in the real world. Believe it or not, the fine motor skills you develop help with surgical skills. I know. I didn't make it. It's not my words. Okay. The other one is think about simulation. If you're a pilot, right, you go into a simulator. And if you can simulate right? This idea of a game and have it apply to life, great. So let me show you what I mean here. Gran Turismo is a game. Um, Let me share my screen here. I think I forgot to share the screen when I did that. I did, forgot to share the screen. And I shared this in class. This is going to be a transferable life skill that comes from a video game. Okay. So this is Gran Turismo, an actual video game. And this is an actual, sorry for the ad, movie that came from it.
I feel like I've aged myself by
If you miss the line in the game, you reset. Missing the track, you could die.
Who do you think the best driver is?
probably Rory.
I would dust him in a lap.
Yeah. All you do is play video games with some crazy dreams of racing cars.
Dad, you're the one that told us to always do something we love.
Okay, sorry.
Racing cars, cars.
Okay, I'm a little worried that I don't have, my video will get banned from that. Okay, so for example, this is an example of true, real story. He played Gran Turismo, a video game about race car driving, and he was one of the best. So they recruited the top video game players and put him in an actual race car. And the skill was transferable. He could translate what he was doing in the video game into the race car, which I think that's pretty phenomenal. It's staggering to think that you can do that. Okay, so I'm gonna scroll back out of that. Share my screen. There's a lot of navigating here from video to, here we go, back to here. Okay. So here's the ethos. According to C. Sean Green, University of Wisconsin psychologist, and a psychologist is going to study human behavior, why we do what we do. He says video games may actually teach kids high-level thinking skills that they will need in the future. Video games change your brain. Okay, anything that's learning, by the way, changes your brain. You kind of have like a very smooth brain when you're a baby. And all the grooves that you put in your brain are learning. So basically saying that when you play a video game, he says it changes the brain's physical structure. The exact same way when you read a book, you play the piano or navigate using a map. So he's very basically saying it's exact same learning in a video game that takes place when you read a book or do other learning, which means higher level critical thinking is taking place. You're exercising a muscle. This time the muscle is your brain. Don't underestimate the power of fun, everyone. When you have fun in the classroom, I'm gonna stop share here for a second. When you have fun in the classroom, it enhances learning. We know this to be truth. Anytime as a teacher, and I remember going through college, you want learning to take place, you make it fun. Let them put their hands on it, let them touch it. So for example, I could show you a video of dissecting a frog and you could learn. I could put you in a biology lab and give you an actual frog and a dissecting kit and say, go for it. Here's the diagram, find all the parts, label them. Higher level learning would be taking place. Of course it would. And it would be a lot more fun, wouldn't it? By the way, I love that. I used to love biology class. I used to love doing that. Even in college, I loved it. Be the first one. I'll cut. I'll do whatever. Yeah, that's me. Okay, so this first article, you'll just see a lot of really fascinating arguments. I like this hand-eye coordination, fine motor skill, and spatial skills. In shooting games, particularly, the character may be running and shooting at the same time. This requires the real-world player to keep track of the position of the character, where they're heading, their speed, the gun. Okay, so this is spatial awareness. This is multi-processing. And all these factors have to be taken into account, higher level critical thinking. You have to coordinate the brain's interpretation and reaction with your movement in your hands and your fingertips. Not easy. This requires hand-eye coordination, visual spatial ability, and honestly, you can learn iconic spatial and visual attention skills from video games. And here's that argument. Adults have shown that they have better surgical skills. Fighter pilots today are more skillful in this generation than they were in previous generations. And even the military is using some of these Call of Duty or these Mortal Kombat games to prepare soldiers for battle. and find that it helps them. Quickly, I'm going to scroll through down to this this page. I really like this page. You'll notice the date here, September 5th, 2023. I'd like to find the most recent information. And I like Cheryl Olson is from the Center for Mental Health and Media, Massachusetts General Hospital, Department of Psychiatry, obviously study of human behavior. And she led a Harvard medical study. They interviewed 1,000 public school students, and here's what they found out was good. Um, um, Video games can help children's brain development. Okay, now again, this is the appropriate game, the appropriate age level. She gives an anecdotal account of her son who played Legend of Zelda, and my son played Legend of Zelda. He had to search, negotiate, plan, and try different approaches to advance. Another game, Bakugan Defenders of the Core, involved planning and problem solving. There's modding in games where players customize their character's appearance. They develop new game levels, allows for creative self-expression, a deep understanding of game rules and structure. Okay, can't argue against that, right? Um, Video games, even if video games aren't labeled educational, she says, they can help children learn to make decisions, use strategies, anticipate consequences, and express their personalities. That's a win. The other one, video games can help kids make friends. I was astonished. I found article after article after article after article, and socialization was big. Okay, not every kid is athletic. Not every kid is the most popular. Not every kid is, artistic. Uh, for some kids, this is a great social outlet for them. And we think of it as isolating. Video games can create a common ground for kids to make friends, hang out, and provide structured time with friends. My son is 28. His best friend from middle school and high school lived across the street, and now his best friend lives in Oklahoma. My son literally today is on his Xbox playing with his friend Ben. So that you can play with a friend who doesn't even live in the same state anymore and maintain that friendship. I think that's pretty cool. They found in their research, focus group of adolescent boys said games were a frequent focus of conversation among their peers. So even when they weren't playing the game at home, they were talking about the games with their peers. And anytime you have something that is a common interest, that's going to develop an outside organization. Even children with mild learning disabilities were likely to choose making new friends as a reason they played video games. So I thought that was cool. Video games spark creativity. I like this one. According to a creativity research journal, they found a link between video games and creativity. So here they put 352 participants into 3 groups. One played Minecraft, one played a race car game, and one watched a TV show. And at the end of it, when everything was done, they wanted to they gave them tasks for creativity. The group that played Minecraft were given the most freedom in playing the game, were able to complete more tasks creatively. So interesting. Surprising benefits, problem solving, social connections again. Some kids have trouble fitting in and making friends in real life. Video games can be a refuge for them to find people to connect with in a positive way. I'm going to scroll down here and see if there's anything else. There's another one. Help children to make friends. There it is again. Boys frequently converse about video games with their peers. The negative, that's next week. That's just a learning different, might help ease pain. I thought that was interesting. There's social connections again. So as you can see, a lot of these start to repeat. I'm looking for something specific that I know is in your essay. And if I don't find it, I'll just go to the essay part. But as you can see, quite a bit of interesting information. Okay, I'm going to stop. I'm not going to stop share there. I'm just going to go to this one. Nope. Okay, that wasn't where I wanted to go. That wasn't where I wanted to go. Okay, so I'm going to go to my outline then. I thought I had my outline, but I guess I didn't. So let me pop up the outline. Here we go. So what is the appeal of video games? Historically, video games, this is my lead, have come a long way. One of the earliest games involved rudimentary lines representing paddles and a blip. That was Pong. Fast forward to today, and video games come in vibrant colors with high-def graphics, realistic animation features, simulation of real-life experiences, and a video game in modern times is not only attractive to look at, they are interactive, challenging, and exciting to play. And many compare video games to eye candy. That's how appealing they are to kids. Of course, they're on a screen. So scientists and educators promote the idea of kids playing specific video games. They claim when kids have fun, it can be a natural way for them to be more motivated to learn. An interesting finding is kids today do not want easy games. They prefer challenging games requiring them to learn, explore, and master. And if you're learning, exploring, and mastering, you're actually benefiting. So kids learn through trial and error, figure out mistakes they've made, discover new ways to problem solve, and collaborate with others through social channels on how to beat the game. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just outlined what education is all about, right? Those opposed to kids playing video games argue they promote violence, are too mature in content, and can result in kids becoming addicted, which ultimately cause them to perform poorly in school and to develop violent tendencies and antisocial behaviors. So you know the negatives are pretty bad. And honestly, the negatives are really mostly with excessive gaming more than, and we're talking 8, 10, 12 hours a day. And we're going to talk about how they can even do that in the first place next week. So our thesis today, proponents of kids playing video games claim they can enhance learning by developing higher level critical thinking, allow kids to create a social network of friends, and result in improved fine motor skills, spatial awareness, which all have real life applications. So the fact that video games have transferable skills, I think, is one of the best arguments in their favor. So body paragraph 1, I've already done this with you through the article. When kids play video games, it has been shown by credible experts to improve overall learning and creative thinking skills. I don't think anyone denies that. And I do think that the video gaming industry is really getting smart about creating games for younger and younger kids because there's a market. If you market it as educational, a parent will buy into it. And you remember, fun enhances learning. So this is that C. Sean Green argument. Cheryl K. Olson, you'll see me do her a lot. Remember, she's the one who led the Harvard Medical School study about how it is beneficial, creating higher level critical thinking. It improves creativity. I did this one, the 352 participants, and I want to give you another one here. Another study, I gave you 3 here, followed a 12-year-old gamers and related evidence showing that they were more creative thinkers when they were asked to draw, tell stories, ask questions, and make predictions. They each showed high levels of creativity and curiosity. I like this third argument the best. This is James Paul G., professor of education at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, who says playing a video game is similar to working through a science problem. The scientific method requires formulating a hypothesis. That's what gamers must come up with during a game. A player must repeat trial and error experiments, constantly attempting new moves, changing directions, all while using weapons or powers to advance in the game. If one method does not work, they try a different approach. G explained. Video gamers are goal-driven experiences, which are fundamental to learning. I mean, that backs our claim. So educators and psychologists have found the play component in video games engages children to learn for the simple joy of it, which is why creative thinking is taking place. The second one I organized in 3 specific arguments on purpose to give you more. So the first one is improved socialization. And article after article after, I think I have 7 articles, and in every article they mention socialization. Playing video games connects them with other like-minded competitive players, some from other countries, and they can play online from anywhere. Great argument. Playing video games has been seen as isolating for those who oppose them, but the reality is many gamers consider their game time to be a social event. This is Cheryl Olson again. Games create a common ground for kids to make friends, hang out, and provide structured time with friends. Kids with learning disabilities can make new friends. Research has shown boys in particular talk about video games among their peers. There's even been an increase in multiplayer online opportunities, which is a way for players to socialize and work together to defeat a new game released. Statistics show 70% of video game players engage with other players at least some of the time. Okay, so, in my day, it was you're sitting in front of maybe even an arcade, it's one-on-one. And that's really not how they're creating games anymore. Playing video games teaches the fairness of competition and anyone can fit in. I actually love this. Not all good kids are good at sports. Some can thrive in a video game world. They allow you to remain anonymous. Players are recognized for their skill, not whether they're popular or they're cool or athletic or artistic. In any competitive arena, especially gaming, players recognize the importance of taking turns, but in gaming, players can watch and observe what others do, whether it's right or wrong. A player can notice how their opponent moves, capture items, score points, and copy them. Players can become strong leaders too because they feel confident in their skill level, at least enough to persuade, mediate, or motivate other like-minded players and challenge them. And I like this one. Teamwork can be taught through interactive online games. The game Team Fortress 2 demands players cooperate with one another to win. So kids who understand why it's necessary to take their skill and collaborate, teachers reported young students who played video games were better collaborators in the classroom and worked better in groups. I love that. I hope that's true. And lastly, and this argument's really important for those of you who haven't done next week's side 2, because I'm going to blow the lid off side 2. The same thing. So fine motor skills, improves hand-eye coordination, make kids more aware of their surroundings. These are all the skills that are transferable to life. Shooting games, fingers must manipulate the controller to move the character with one hand, shoot the targets with the other. This requires dexterity, fine motor skills. According to the University of Rochester, action games specifically allow players to make quick decisions without sacrificing accuracy. Consider how many events are happening in a game. For example, Call of Duty. A gamer must keep track of the position of the character, where they're heading, their speed, where the gun is aiming, if the gunfire is hitting the enemy, which requires spatial awareness. Spatial skills are improved when kids play video games as they must respond to simultaneous movements at once, training their brain to react accordingly by making the correct decisions with their hands and fingers guiding the controllers. Daphne Bevelier, a cognitive scientist, led a study at the University of Rochester finding games simulating stressful events, such as those found in battle or action, could be a training for real-world situations. So this is what they're doing with training soldiers. It will help them in the actual field of battle. So video games can be used as simulators to train future soldiers, pilots, or surgeons. All in all, when kids play video games, it's not necessarily a bad way to spend their time. And studies have shown they can be educational while also offering social and experiential benefits as long as they're played in moderation. So parents today have a right to be concerned, I'm right here in the conclusion, about how their children spend their free time. Parents often perceive only the dangers associated with playing video games and fail to consider their inherent value in teaching kids life skills while allowing them to have fun. So let me explain. I do agree with playing video games. My son has a VR headset, an Xbox. Do we have a PlayStation or a Nintendo? Or no, we have a Nintendo. So since the gaming industry is not only influential, but part of modern childhood, it's important for parents to look at both sides of the argument before they conclude what's best for their child. So here's what we've learned. Video games can be an appropriate leisure time activity as long as there are established limits with playing time. And parents must be mindful of kids who will go to extreme lengths to play excessively, often at the exclusion of everything else. And this is a warning sign. Like any fun activity, kids should be able to play as long as clear boundaries are set. Video games were earlier described as eye candy. A few bites of candy can be a welcome treat for a kid. However, too much is detrimental to their health. The same can be said for too many video games. So when we talk about the benefits of playing video games, it's important to keep it in perspective. But I will say, I'm stunned by how many good arguments were made scientifically and that were backed up about video games. So as long as they're played in moderation and appropriate levels, if you're playing video games, it's not a bad thing. Okay. This concludes the proponent side of kids playing video games. Thank you for watching. And so submit your essay as soon as you can. All right. And this is Sunday, January 14th. So if you have Martin Luther King Day off, if you happen to get a snow day, I don't know if you will. That's the reason I'm recording this week, and I will record on Monday the other side. Okay. Have a great one. Stay warm, stay safe.